"Hey, janitor, don't touch the CEO's table." The voice cracked through the silence like a slap. Carter Hughes paused mid-wipe. Cloth frozen against the edge of the glistening glass table. He didn't reply, didn't look up. The young intern who barked the warning had already disappeared, leaving only the echo of superiority behind. Carter lowered the cloth slowly, straightened the notepad on the table, and turned away. Every night it was the same routine, same floors, same silence, same feeling that no one saw him. Not really, but he was exactly where he chose to be. A year ago, Carter had walked away from a promising engineering career, senior systems analyst at Halpern Dynamics. It was the kind of job men spent years chasing. Prestige, salary, long hours, too long. His daughter Ava had started calling him sir as a joke because she saw him less than her school principal. Then came the night Ava fell asleep on the kitchen floor waiting for him to come home and read her a story. And Carter had known some sacrifices were too expensive. So he traded blueprints for brooms, reports for rubber gloves. The day job was still technical, but at night, from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., he became the invisible man pushing a janitor's cart through one of Chicago's coldest glass towers. Why? Because Ava deserved a father who was present. Because he made a promise, kneeling beside a hospital bed with his wife's hand in his. No matter what, I'll raise her to smile every morning. I'll be there for every page, every dance, every broken crayon. The night his wife passed away, Carter didn't cry. He made a plan. 2 weeks later, he walked away from the career he had spent a lifetime building just to trade it for precious moments with his daughter to make up for the love she lost when she lost her mother. If you're a parent, too, send Carter a like or drop him a word of encouragement. He deserves it from BUP Stories. Now, every evening as Ava finished dinner with her aunt in their tiny two-bedroom apartment on the south side, Carter clocked in at Morgan Tech, janitorial contractor, floor 30 to 38. 3 months in, no one even remembered his name. And that was fine. He wasn't here to be noticed, but tonight felt different. He moved down the hall with his cart, past glass offices where executive chairs sat like thrones. The city glimmered beyond the window walls. He could almost see Ava's room from here. The warm glow of her nightlight fighting the darkness. Then he heard it, a choked sound. Sharp, wet, not quite a cry. Carter stopped, looked up. Conference room B. Through the frosted glass, a figure hunched at the table, head in hands. Papers spilled like broken thoughts across polished wood. Carter hesitated. This wasn't his business. But Ava's voice echoed in his chest. You always say helping is never wrong, even when nobody asks. He knocked gently. The young man inside looked up. Red-rimmed eyes, messy tie, panic written all over his face. Sorry to interrupt, Carter said softly. You okay in there? The kid sniffed, nodding quickly. I just ruined my pitch deck. Data is gone. Deadline's at 9 a.m. My career's basically over. Carter looked at the mess. Bad formatting, yes. Misaligned slides, sure, but salvageable. I can help if you want. You know how to fix this? Carter smiled faintly. I used to fix jet engines. I think I can handle some slides. 20 minutes later, the numbers lined up. The graphs made sense. The panic faded. As Carter stood to leave, he scribbled something on a sticky note and left it on the laptop. Don't quit at midnight. The sun's not even up yet. He stepped out into the hallway, the weight of memory pressing gently on his shoulders. Down in the lobby, the cold night welcomed him, and just beyond the glass doors. "Daddy!" Ava sprinted into view, her coat half-zipped, her backpack lopsided. She flew into his arms, laughing. He scooped her up, heart full. "You stay out of trouble. I drew you a lion," she whispered. "It's fierce." "Perfect," he said, eyes glinting. "You'll show me at breakfast." She nodded. Above them, high on the 34th floor, a shadow moved behind the CEO's window. Maya Williams, coffee in hand, stared down at the man in coveralls holding a child who lit up the sidewalk with joy. She watched, unmoving, and for the first time in months, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was the one who had it all wrong from BUP stories. "You're 5 minutes late, Miss Williams." The voice belonged to Charles Reading, the board's senior advisor. Though wrapped in velvet politeness, it carried the cold edge of judgment. Maya Williams didn't flinch. She stepped into the executive boardroom, heels silent on the marble, her deep burgundy coat fluttering like a flag behind her. "I own the clock, Charles," she replied evenly, laying her tablet on the glass table. "Let's get started." All eyes followed her, some with admiration, others with envy. Maya wasn't just another CEO. She was the story corporate magazines loved to run, but never truly understood. At 32, she had transformed Langford Solutions from a stale legacy firm into one of the nation's most disruptive tech players. And she had done it not with warmth or consensus, but with precision and audacity. Her staff called her the iceberg. But outside the boardroom, tabloids whispered another name. The siren of Silicon Valley, for her stunning looks and unapproachable aura, a mix of intellect and allure that few could navigate. But control, her greatest weapon, was slipping. Sales were cooling. A federal audit loomed, and a minor labor complaint had just triggered a full-blown Department of Labor review into subcontractor practices. She dismissed the board, returned to her office, and stared out at the Chicago skyline, shrouded in fog. Her espresso steamed on the desk, untouched. Then, as if from nowhere, an image crept into her mind. The janitor, the one from last night, silent, unbothered, helping a flustered junior analyst with a presentation crash. No recognition, no reward, just grace. She hated that it stuck with her. Maya didn't believe in sentiment. But something in his posture, steady, composed, unfazed, nagged at her. Hours later, her assistant, Megan, appeared at the door. "Miss Williams." HR flagged something. "Might be nothing." Maya turned. "Go on." "Last night, someone from the janitorial team accessed the 11th floor server room." Her brow lifted. "That floor is restricted. No damage, no breach, just unusual. The footage shows Carter Hughes. He used a master badge." Maya leaned back slowly. That name again. Minutes later, Carter's file lay on her desk. Name, Carter Jerome Hughes, age 42. Position, janitorial, contracted through Clear Vest. Previous employment, helper in Dynamics, senior systems analyst. Education, B.S. Mechanical Engineering, University of Michigan. She frowned. A man like that, cleaning floors, no misconduct, no late arrivals, no red flags, just silence. Her fingers drummed the table. Curiosity. That night, as always, Carter arrived on schedule. His cart rolled softly through gleaming corridors. Then a voice, clear, low, female, cut through the quiet. "You're Carter Hughes." He turned. Maya Williams stood in the hallway, backlit by her office lights. No guards, no assistant, just her, arms folded, eyes locked. "Yes," he replied calmly. "You fixed one of my analysts' presentations last night." He didn't answer. She took a step forward. "Why are you really here? To clean and to keep a promise?" A pause, tension humming like a taut wire. 10 minutes. "My office." "Explain." Carter hesitated, then followed. Inside, Maya stood by the glass wall, all elegance and edge. Carter remained upright, quiet. "Sit," she offered. "I prefer to stand." She studied him. How he didn't shrink. How he didn't stare. Just existed, solid. Finally. "Why waste a resume like yours cleaning toilets?" His reply came without hesitation. "Because my daughter thinks I'm Superman, and I made her mother a promise." The room stilled. She didn't know what shook her more, his words or the steadiness behind them. "You're dismissed, Mr. Hughes," she said. He turned. Then softer, she added, "Don't be late tomorrow." He paused. "Never am." The door clicked shut. And for the first time in years, Maya Williams stood in her office wondering who exactly had just walked into her life and why she suddenly couldn't stop thinking about him from BUP stories. The night air inside Langford Solutions was always cold. Not just from the overzealous HVAC system, but from the silence, the kind that made your own footsteps sound guilty. Carter Hughes moved through the corridors like a shadow. The soft squeak of his janitor cart wheels trailing him like a whisper from the past. Tonight, however, the silence felt different. It was as if someone was watching. He paused near the executive wing where the light from Maya Williams' office spilled into the hallway like warm brandy over polished stone. He could see her silhouette behind the frosted glass. Elegant, unmoving, yet clearly working late again. He lowered his eyes and continued. Maya had asked no more questions since that brief conversation the night before, but Carter could feel something shifting. He didn't like attention, especially not from someone like her. Powerful, observant, and far too sharp for comfort. What he needed was quiet, stability, a routine he could stick to for his daughter's sake. And yet, part of him felt something stirring, a memory. His wife, Alicia, standing in their kitchen 5 years ago, her voice soft but certain. "No matter what happens to me, promise me you'll still be there for Lily. Not just after work. Be there when it matters." He hadn't broken that promise, even if it meant giving up everything he'd built. His career in aerospace systems, his status, his pride. Cleaning floors gave him freedom. And that freedom gave him time. Time to braid Lily's hair in the morning. Time to sit through her school plays, no matter how small the part. Time to whisper, "I'm here," when the nightmares came. He opened the door to the break room. To his surprise, it wasn't empty. A young man sat on the couch, head in hands. The corporate lanyard around his neck read, Jeremy Collins, Data Analysis Intern. Carter said nothing as he walked in. He moved to the corner, poured himself a lukewarm coffee from the half-cleaned pot, and waited. Jeremy didn't move, but eventually he muttered, I blew it. Carter took a sip. Want to tell me what happened? Jeremy looked up, startled. He hesitated, then said, I crashed the server trying to run a new algorithm. Didn't back up the original data. Presentation in the morning. Carter didn't blink. You're not the first. Yeah, well, I'll probably be the first intern they fire. Depends. Carter replied. You learn from it. Jeremy's mouth tightened, then nodded. Yeah, I did. Then it's not a total loss. Jeremy looked at him confused. Why do you even care? You're just the janitor. Carter met his eyes without flinching. Because I've seen what a second chance can do. Just then, Maya Williams entered. She paused, taking in the odd scene. Her intern and the janitor talking like old friends. Jeremy, she said coolly. My office now. Jeremy rose, flustered. Yes, ma'am. He brushed past Carter, mouthing a quick thanks before vanishing down the hallway. Maya stared at Carter for a beat longer than necessary, then said, You like cleaning up messes, don't you? He replied simply, I've had practice. She didn't smile, but her eyes flickered with something. Amusement? Admiration? I reviewed your old patents, she said. You're smarter than half the engineers on our staff. Why stay down here? He didn't answer. So, she tried again. You know, most people would kill for a shot to come back from a fall. He looked at her squarely. I'm not most people. This time, she smiled. A real one. Brief, but undeniable. Then she left from BUP Stories. That night, Carter went home, tucked Lily into bed, and sat on the porch alone. The city skyline blinked in the distance, and for the first time in years, something inside him stirred. Not ambition, not regret, but a question. Why is she paying attention now? And more importantly, what happens if I start paying attention back? You never drink your coffee hot, do you? Maya Williams asked, standing in the doorway of the break room with her arms folded. Carter didn't turn. He stirred the lukewarm cup in his hand with a plastic stirrer. The sound of the tiny stick tapping ceramic filled the room. It gives me time to think, he replied without looking up. She stepped inside, her heels soft against the tile floor, her presence warm and uncomfortably close. Maya, 32, with her confident stride, almond-shaped eyes, and an elegant black blazer that hugged her frame just enough to remind him this was her building, her domain. And somehow he had ended up in her orbit. I've been reviewing the new proposal from Rickson Tech, she said, sitting at the opposite table. You worked with them before, right? Back when you were still in aerospace. He looked up sharply. That was a long time ago. But you know how they structure their back-end systems. He gave a reluctant nod. She leaned forward, hands clasped. I think they're hiding something. Carter tilted his head. Why tell me? Because you notice things. You're not just cleaning floors. You're watching. For a beat, the room held still. Carter sat down his cup. If I say I noticed something strange in the blueprints they submitted, you're going to ask how I know. And if I answer truthfully, you might have to report that you're getting your intel from the janitor. She smirked. Let me worry about the reporting. He hesitated, then sighed. The data ports they listed don't match their architecture from 2 years ago. They're either changing protocols, which makes no sense for continuity, or they're hiding third-party access. You think they're creating a backdoor? I think they already have. Maya leaned back, visibly processing. That's exactly the kind of thing that could tank this merger. Carter nodded. Or your entire company if it's not caught early. Silence stretched between them. Then Maya whispered. I knew something was off, but no one else saw it. That's the problem with glass offices, he said quietly. They reflect, but they don't reveal. She smiled at that. It wasn't flirtation, it was recognition. Later that afternoon, something else changed. Carter was on the 5th floor restocking supply closets when he heard shouting from the conference room. You're not going to let him influence your decision, are you? It was Victor Shaw, head of finance. Slick, arrogant, and Maya's longest-standing executive ally. I'm listening to facts, Maya replied coolly from inside. I don't care where they come from. Carter froze. Victor hissed. He's a janitor, Maya. A janitor who somehow knows more than your lead tech advisors. Maybe because he doesn't spend his time playing golf with competitors, she shot back. The room went quiet. Carter quietly stepped away. His heart beat faster, not out of fear, but from the realization that lines were being drawn, and somehow he was at the center of them. That evening, as he picked up Lily from her art class, she climbed into the car with a smile. Daddy, guess what? Miss Parker said, my painting looked like a dream. He smiled, brushing a smudge of green paint from her cheek. That's because you're a dream, baby girl. At home, after Lily went to bed, Carter stood at the sink, staring out the kitchen window. The lights of the city flickered, indifferent. But something inside him was no longer quiet. He wasn't just keeping a promise anymore. He was being pulled into something bigger, something dangerous. And the more Maya Williams looked at him like he mattered, the more the past he buried began to stir. He wasn't afraid of getting involved. He was afraid of what he'd become if he did from BUP stories. Why is the janitor walking into the server room? The voice came from behind a thick pane of glass. Carter didn't need to turn to know it was Bryce Hanover, Victor Shaw's hand-picked tech lead. Arrogant, Ivy League educated, and exactly the kind of man who thought a suit made him smarter. Carter didn't break stride. He held his ID badge up to the scanner, waited for the beep, and stepped into the secured space as if he'd belonged there his entire life. Because once upon a time he had. Inside, the hum of servers filled the sterile air, a sound that once soothed him, not so much now. Not when his instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He knelt near one of the panels, eyes scanning the ports. There it was again, port 38A, unregistered, buried beneath a tangle of wiring. Not on the official schematics Maya had shown him. Plugged into it was a small black device no larger than a matchbox. Not company issued. Definitely not legal. He didn't touch it. Just took out his phone, snapped 3 quick photos, and walked back out without a word. Outside the door, Bryce stood with arms crossed. "You're overstepping." Carter stared him down. "Then report me." "I intend to." Bryce sneered. "To Ms. Williams directly." Carter leaned in slightly. "Do that, but when you do, be prepared to explain why you've been approving server reports that don't mention port 38A for the last 3 quarters. Bryce's face paled. Later that night, Maya called him. "I got your message. Tell me you're wrong." "I'm not. There's a tap in your primary server stack. Someone's been siphoning data quietly, routing it through dummy servers." "Do you think it's Bryce?" "I think Bryce signed off on everything, whether knowingly or not. He's compromised." There was a pause. Then she asked quietly, "Why are you helping me, Carter?" He hesitated. "Because you reminded me what it's like to be seen. Because I promised a dying woman I'd be a better man for our daughter. Because you trust me in a way that terrifies me." But what he said was simply, "Because someone has to." The next morning, things escalated. Victor Shaw requested an emergency board meeting. Carter wasn't invited, but he knew why it was happening. He stayed in the janitor's room on the lower level, reviewing the server images again, cross-checking them with old Rickson tech patents. Every comparison led to one conclusion. The same exploit Rickson used before their scandal 3 years ago, now repackaged under a different name, buried in Maya's infrastructure. At 2:17 p.m., the building's internal comm system glitched. At 2:19, the stock price of Maya's company dropped 3% in under 60 seconds. By 2:22, Maya burst into the janitor's room, breathless. "They're trying to crash the company from the inside." Bryce and Victor, they brought in a third-party firm to audit the system, but it's a front. "They're planting data to frame me." Carter stood slowly. "You still have your emergency override access?" "Yes." "Then we stop playing defense." They raced through the lower halls toward the server room. As they reached the access doors, Carter paused. "If you go in there and override their access logs, you're declaring war," he said. Maya looked at him, conflicted, furious, scared. "They declared it first." Then she swiped her badge. Inside, Carter moved like a man who had never truly forgotten. Fingers danced across keys. One command line at a time, he mapped the unauthorized access routes. Maya stood beside him, issuing override codes, her voice steady, her jaw tight. "Last chance to back out," he said. She leaned in. "Last chance to fix everything." He hit enter. The system rebooted. Outside the glass, they could already see shadows approaching. Security, Bryce, Victor. But by the time the door slammed open, it was too late. The back door was exposed. The evidence was live. And Carter was no longer just the janitor from BUP stories. The hallway outside the server room had never felt longer. Carter stood shoulder to shoulder with Maya, facing the inevitable storm. Security guards in black suits flanked the walls like statues. Victor Shaw strode toward them at the center, calm, polished, dangerous. Bryce followed half a step behind, face stiff, eyes dodging Carter's. Victor stopped just inches away, folding his arms like a man prepared to deliver a verdict. "Ms. Williams," he said, voice smooth as cut glass. "That override was unauthorized." "So was the surveillance tap," Maya answered, chin lifted. "And I've got proof." Victor's smile didn't fade, but it sharpened. "I've been patient with your experiments, but you've crossed a line. Bringing in janitors as IT advisors, tampering with confidential systems. This is a violation of trust." Maya didn't flinch. "The only thing violated here is the security of this company by you." Victor turned to the guards. "Escort Mr. Carter off the premises." They moved fast. One reached for Carter's arm, but Carter stepped back and calmly held up his phone. "Before you touch me, you might want to consider the file I sent to 3 journalists 20 minutes ago, along with a timestamped trail of every unauthorized transfer going back 2 fiscal years. The hallway froze. Victor's face didn't change, but Bryce visibly panicked. "Wait, he's bluffing." "Am I?" Carter said, turning to Maya. "Check your inbox." She pulled out her phone, scrolled, stopped, then her eyes locked with Victor's. "You funneled client data into shell companies, and worse, you used the Children's Program Fund as a cover. This isn't just fraud. This is federal." For the first time, Victor blinked. "You can't prove I touched any of it," he said. Carter stepped forward. "That device in the server room, it was registered to a tech firm based in Delaware, subsidiary of Palmetto Holdings. And guess whose name is on the founding documents?" Victor didn't answer, but his silence said enough. Security didn't move. Not anymore. It was Maya who turned to the guards and said quietly but clearly, "Remove Mr. Shaw and Mr. Hanover. Effective immediately." The moment was heavy, electric. The guards looked at each other, then at Victor, who offered no command. He simply adjusted his tie, straightened his blazer, and walked away as if the hallway were a red carpet and not a battlefield he'd just lost. Bryce, in contrast, crumbled. As they escorted him away, he shouted over his shoulder, "You'll regret this." "You think this ends here?" Carter didn't even look at him. He looked at Maya. Later in her office, Maya stood by the window, staring out at the city. "I thought I had everything under control," she said. "Built this company from the ashes of my fathers. Fought tooth and nail for every investor, every deal. I didn't see it coming." Carter sat across the room, quiet, respectful. "That's the thing about snakes. They don't hiss until they strike." She turned, smiled faintly. "You always speak like you've seen more than you admit." He looked down, ran a hand over his worn cap. "I've buried people I love. I've made promises I thought I couldn't keep. But today, I kept one." "To who?" He met her gaze. "To the woman who gave me my daughter." Maya walked over, stood just inches away. The room felt still again, like the moment before a storm breaks or a door opens. "I owe you more than I can say," she whispered. "No," Carter replied. "You gave me a chance. That's all I ever needed." And in that quiet, the battle won, the lies exposed, and justice beginning to breathe. Something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but respect, trust, a shared fight that bound them closer than words could reach. And for Carter, For the man who once only mopped floors to be close to his little girl, that was everything from BUP stories. The morning after Victor Shaw was escorted from the building, the entire company seemed to exhale for the first time in years. The silence in the halls was different now, no longer weighted with secrets, but fresh, like a field after rain. Carter arrived early as always. But this time, no one looked through him. He wasn't just the janitor anymore. He was the man who stood up when others stayed silent. But he still wore the same uniform. He still carried his mop because Carter Moore never asked for recognition. Only purpose. Down in the basement were the concrete floors, metal shelves, and cleaning carts. Carter ran into Malcolm from HR. "You shouldn't be down here," Malcolm said, shifting uncomfortably. "You could be in a corner office by now." Carter smiled, shaking his head. "Ain't nothing wrong with where you start your day as long as you know why you're doing it." Malcolm looked at him for a long beat, then nodded. "Maya wants to see you. Top floor now." Maya's office looked different in the daylight. The shadows were gone. The air warmer. She stood behind her desk in a white blouse and slate gray trousers, her expression unreadable but softer than usual. Carter stepped in without hesitation. "You called?" She motioned for him to sit. "I wanted to talk before the board meeting." "You mean the one where you name a new COO?" She tilted her head, surprised. "Word travels fast." "No," Carter replied. "I just listened close." She smiled faintly and leaned forward. "The board wants me to clean house, remove everyone who had a hand in the data scandal, restructure our culture, and salvage what's left of our reputation." "I agree with them." "Good," Carter said. "Start fresh." She paused, then continued, her voice gentler now. "They also want me to bring in someone trustworthy, someone who knows this place inside out, who's been watching, listening, and who's proven he'll put people before power." Carter blinked. "What are you saying?" "I'm offering you a position," Maya said plainly. "Director of Internal Integrity. It's new. It's yours if you want it." The words sat heavy between them. Carter didn't respond right away. He looked down at his calloused hands, then back at her. "You trust a janitor with that?" "I trust you," she answered. "Not because of what you did, but how you did it." He walked out without saying yes or no. Not yet. Instead, Carter went to the rooftop. The sky stretched wide over the city, and the breeze was soft, almost like a voice calling from the past. He took out the old photo from his wallet, the one of his late wife holding their baby girl in her arms. The corners were worn, but her smile still lit up the frame. "You told me to raise her right," he whispered. "To never run from what's right. I kept my word, baby." He tucked the photo back and closed his eyes for a moment. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Maya. "Board meeting at 11 o'clock. I saved you a seat." He smiled, shook his head, and replied, "Only if you save me coffee, too." Downstairs, the building buzzed again, but this time it was with renewal. Staff whispered Carter's name with something close to reverence. Janitors nodded with pride. Executives avoided eye contact, but not out of superiority. Out of respect. He passed a young intern in the hallway, struggling to carry a stack of folders. Carter stopped, lifted half the load, and walked with her down the corridor. "Thank you, Mr. Moore," she said shyly. "It's just Carter," he replied. But deep down, he knew. He was no longer just anything. He was the man who cleaned up more than 10 floors. He cleaned up the lies. And now he had a seat at the table from BUP Stories. The boardroom hadn't changed. Same polished mahogany table, same cold skyline looming beyond the glass windows. But for the first time, Carter Moore sat inside, not standing by the door with a mop and bucket. He wore a plain gray suit, no tie, no pretense, just a man with a spine made of lived truth. Across the table, the board members shifted in their chairs. Some recognized him with tight nods, others with thinly veiled discomfort, but no one laughed. No one sneered. Because everyone knew, this man had already proven himself in ways most of them never could. At the head of the table sat Maya Williams, composed, radiant, unshakable. She tapped her pen once on the folder before her. "Let's begin." The room quickly filled with status reports, proposed restructures, and updates on the aftermath of Victor Shaw's ousting. Most of it was noise, cleaning up legal debris and crafting public statements. But Carter listened to every word, filtering facts from fear, truth from cover. Then came the moment that pulled the air from the room. "We need to address the integrity division," said Bennett Cray, a senior board member. "You proposed a new internal oversight role. Do you have someone in mind?" Maya didn't even glance down. "I do. Carter Moore." A quiet thunder rolled across the room. Cray leaned forward. "You mean the janitor?" "No," Maya said calmly. "I mean the man who uncovered systemic fraud while mopping your floor. The one who held this place together while we were too busy sipping bourbon and making excuses." "Unorthodox," Cray muttered. "Effective," Maya countered. Carter stood, letting the moment settle. "I don't want a title for the sake of optics," he said. "If I'm stepping into this, it's to do the job right. That means real access, real teeth, no red tape." "Agreed," Maya said without hesitation. "This isn't for show." Another board member raised a concern. "How do we know he won't use this as leverage? Make decisions with a personal axe to grind?" Carter looked him straight in the eye. "I buried my wife 5 years ago," he said, voice steady. "Promised her I'd raise our daughter with honor. I came to this building to scrub floors, not egos. And I saw more from a mop closet than some of y'all saw from corner offices." He paused, then added, "If you want someone polite, pick someone else. But if you want this company to stand for something better, then let's get to work." Silence again. Then slowly Maya smiled. "All in favor?" Hands went up one after another. Carter's appointment was unanimous. After the meeting, as the room emptied, Maya stayed behind. Carter lingered near the window, watching the city stretch beyond the glass. "You did good in there," she said softly. "Still feels strange," he murmured. "Same floor, different view." She stepped beside him, arms folded. "It's a long way from the janitor's closet." "Yeah," Carter said, glancing at her. "But the mop never judged me. Just did the job." Maya laughed. A real one. Full and unguarded. Then she turned serious. You ready for what comes next? Carter nodded slowly. Long as I get to go home to my daughter at the end of the day, I can face anything. Outside, the afternoon sun bathed the skyline in gold. Inside, for the first time, Carter felt something he hadn't in years. Not just respected, not just seen, but invited to belong. The floor he once scrubbed now echoed with his steps. Not of a janitor, but of a man shaping the soul of a company from the inside out. From BUP Stories. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the old fan spinning in the corner. The scent of warmed cinnamon rolls drifted in from the kitchen. Carter's Saturday morning ritual with his daughter Joy. He stood at the living room window, coffee in hand, watching her in the front yard. She was barefoot, twirling in the grass with a worn-out teddy bear in one hand and her other hand stretched to the sky like she was chasing something only she could see. "Daddy," she called, her voice dancing through the screen door. "You going to come play or just stand there looking old?" Carter chuckled. "Old girl, I'm still faster than you." "Prove it." He shook his head and turned back inside. But before stepping out, his eyes landed on the framed photo above the fireplace. Janelle, smiling, radiant, alive. Her laughter still echoed in this house even 5 years after she was gone. He stepped closer to the picture, sat down his coffee, and whispered, "I kept my promise." A week had passed since the boardroom vote. The press had called it a bold move. Some said reckless, others said revolutionary. But inside Carter, there was no confusion. He hadn't done this for glory or revenge. He did it for the woman who once held his hand when the world crumbled, and for the little girl who gave him reason to rebuild. At the new office, a small brass nameplate now read, "Carter Moore, Director of Integrity and Internal Oversight." It wasn't just a title. It was a boundary line. The days of looking the other way were over. That morning, Maya Williams walked into his office unannounced, her hair pulled back, expression unreadable, except for the faint trace of a smile in her eyes. "I thought you'd still be home," she said. "I was, but I figured the messes don't clean themselves." She smirked and handed him a folder. "Then let's start here." As he flipped through it, her tone softened. "You know, you could have walked away. No one would have blamed you." He looked up. "But I would have blamed me." There was a pause. Then she stepped closer. "What you did, it changed this place. And maybe it changed me, too." He met her eyes. "We all got something to clean up." That night, after dinner and homework and bedtime stories, Joy curled up in his lap. "Daddy," she asked, her voice sleepy. "Yeah, pumpkin. Are you still a janitor?" Carter smiled gently. "Always, baby, even when I wear a suit." "Good," she mumbled, closing her eyes. "Because you're the best cleaner ever." He held her tighter. Outside, the world turned. Inside, a father sat in the soft hum of a second-hand lamp, cradling the child he'd fought for, the future he'd earned, and the memory of the woman who still lived in every choice he made. Justice hadn't come in sirens or speeches. It came quietly in mop water and long nights, in a daughter's laugh, and a promise kept. And somewhere in that silence, Carter Moore knew he was never just the janitor. He was the foundation no one saw coming. And now finally they from BUP Stories.